Welcome to The Good, the Bad, and the Sequel Q&A. My name's Doug. So the next sequel we're going to be covering is one of those white whales, white buffaloes, whatever you want to call it. When we started this podcast 7.5 years ago, Predator 2 was a film I always wanted to cover because it was so different from the original. Took these leaps and bounds and these choices, having 1997 being like just so hot, every actor sweating throughout the movie. And it was perfect because when I talked to this week's guest who spent his time and is proud of his work painting all of the Predators, special effects artist Mike Spatola, Jersey guy. He took such pride in working on that film. So it was so cool to be able to talk to him when we had that heat wave a few weeks ago at the same time. And on the day I talked to him, which was July 3rd, that is the date that opens up Return of the Living Dead, which was the first movie that Mike worked on. But Mike's journey was awesome. Jersey guy. He worked at the Brigantine Castle, which was open for like 6 years in the late 70s to the early 80s. Before it got closed down, but he went in there. He loved doing like monster makeup. He loved the magic. He wanted to be a magician. Then he goes in for the interview and he tells the lady, "Hey, your makeup artist here isn't good. I can be better." And it turned out the lady that ran the place was the makeup artist. So he talked about his journey from going from magic, doing the special effects at home, and then to doing it at the Brigantine Castle for 6 years, and then thinking, hey, what's my next step? Then we talked about his journey to California, where he's thinking, hey, I'm going to go to this special effects school. He talks to Rick Baker on the phone. Rick Baker says, no way, you don't need a special effects school. You're good enough to teach at that school. So then Rick connected him with the makeup effects lab. And the rest is history. He has some amazing credits over the way, along the way, some awesome stories. He had like people that he loved that growing up that were like inspirations that everybody wants to be in the field. Rick Baker, Stan Winston, Dick Smith, and he was able to work with all of them. He's working on Predator 2 at Stan Winston's, painting up Jeanette Goldstein's arm, and Dick Smith is right there having a comment about his painting, which is like he talked about amazing. He worked on Tales from the Crypt. He received some Emmy nominations for that. And he's been teaching this as well. He made a book, and I'll put the link in the episode notes to his website where you can find all of that, his Instagram, his photography business in Vegas. But his books are the Monstrous Makeup Manuals, book 1, 2, and 3, or you can get the whole collection on there. And in there, he just made these books and people started teaching them and they were like, hey, we teach your book here. Why don't you teach here? So he was able to impact the next generation of special effects artists. So yeah, so cool. Mike was awesome. Before I start the interview, please like, subscribe, share, follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. And then we check out our website, sequelsonly.com. We have about 425-ish episodes, half of which are interviews with folks that in front of the camera, behind the camera, the rest are the sequel reviews. So yeah, next week we're going to be talking Predator 2. So that'll be a lot of fun. And without further ado, here is Jersey guy, magician, and special effects artist. Oh yeah, and photographer Mike Spatola. But yeah, Mike, this is great. I love connecting with people, finding out how they got their crazy start in show business. Is really such a wild career to go into because there's only X amount of jobs out there. Other accountant. I'm an accountant. Not making fun of myself, but it's like that. A baker. You could find all these different jobs, but it's very specific where you can do this career for the most part. So how'd your journey be and where'd you grow up?
I grew up in New Jersey.
Oh, no way, dude. Where are you in Jersey when you grew up?
I was, I lived in Somers Point, Linwood.
Sweet.
I worked at the Brigantine Castle when I was a kid, if you know the Brigantine Castle.
Yeah. Oh my God, dude. That's awesome. So in Jersey, a fellow Jersey guy, when was that first spark of creativity going into this lane of like special effects? How did that begin?
Well, when I was a kid, I was interested in horror films, monster makeup. I was a magician. I did all kinds of crazy things that were sort of illusion based, right? So when I was 15, the Brigantine Castle opened up, and I, of course, went as a customer, and I just kind of fell in love with the place. I walked through the place going, I have to work here. And so the next summer when I was 16. I went and got my working papers and I went and interviewed. And, when I went for the interview, the woman who interviewed me said, why do you want to work here? And I had quite a bit of an ego back then, still do a little bit maybe. And I said to her, I don't know who does the makeup here, but I could do makeup circles around them. And she said, really? I do the makeup here. And I was like, oops. But, I paused for a second, like realizing what I had just done. And then I said, you know what, Sandy, I stand by what I said. And if you give me a shot, I'll show you. And she said, I like you, Michael. And she put me in a cage for 2 weeks. And in other words, I was a monster in a cage for the first 2 weeks I worked there and was not allowed to do any makeup on anyone but myself. And
a nice hazing.
Yeah. She was teaching me humility. And I was a pretty good monster, but her assistant got sick and couldn't come to work. And she said, okay, Michael, here's your shot. And I did makeup circles around her. And so from that point on, I was the makeup artist there. She quit not much longer after that. And I became in charge of the makeup for 6 years at Brigantine
At
Castle.
16? So from 16 to 22, that
is correct, yeah.
How'd you learn? Just by teaching yourself and just keep doing it over and over again? Or did you reach out to get any advice when you're before this?
No, I didn't know who to reach out to, but I did have the Dick Smith Do-It-Yourself Monster Makeup Handbook. So I was set.
You were good, yeah.
Which I still have somewhere. I think it's in a box in storage because I've moved so many times. I think
that was everyone of your era, of that era that came up, like the K&B guys, which I know you worked with, like they all had that. Everybody I talked to, they had that kit, or they just were like in love with the Universal monsters, like seeing like, how do you make a person that looks like me or looks like my dad turn into that? And people just got so fascinated by it and wanted to recreate it themselves over and over again. So what was your next steps after this? So you're doing that for 6 years. When did you think like, okay, this is awesome, I love doing this job, but what's that next step? Like, how'd you come up with that?
Well, yeah, my last like 2 seasons there at the Brigantine Castle, I decided there wasn't much more I could do there with the budget that we had and the amount of time, because I was doing like 20 makeups in 2 hours every morning. Certainly not movie quality work, but decent for a haunted house. And I just said, there's more to this. I want to work in movies. So what I initially did was contact the Joe Blasco School, which was pretty much the only game in town back then. There was 2. There was Elegance International, which became EI, and the Joe Blasco School. And I signed up, I paid my deposit, and I moved across the country. And I got to LA, and the first thing I did was go to the school. I didn't know where else to go. I didn't have a place to live yet. And so I went to the school and I was like, hey, can I sit in on a class? And they're like, sure, you paid your deposit. Okay, no problem. I sat in on a class and I was so heartbroken. I was like, oh my God, I could teach here, thinking I was going to be a student. And then I go, I could teach this stuff. And so I got really disappointed. But I didn't do anything yet. I figured, maybe I'll meet somebody there that can help my career or whatever. But a friend of mine who's no longer with us, a guy named Phil Riley, who owned Magic Image Film Books. He wrote a bunch of books that were based on old movies, and he would take the script and recreate the film from the script, like London After Midnight, which doesn't have any existing copies left. He would take that script and production stills or whatever he could find and make a book from it. Well, Phil was a friend of mine who I worked with at the Brigantine Castle. Well, frankly, I didn't believe him when he said he knew all the people he knew. I was like, yeah, sure, Phil, sure, Rick Baker, sure, you know David Bowie and Tim Curry, sure, right? Well, he gave me Rick Baker's phone number, and I got to as soon as my phone was connected, I called Rick Baker, and Rick wasn't there. I talked to the guy who answered the phone, and he's like, "Yeah, Rick's not here, man. I'll have him give you a call when he gets back in. He's out of town." I was like, "Okay, this is the guy that doesn't let me talk to Rick Baker." So I, um, disheartened, I hung up the phone and waited a few days and called again, and it's same spiel. He's out of town. I can take a message. He'll call you when he gets back in town. Give me your name and number. And I was like, yeah, this is Mike. And, oh, you called the other day. Yes. Well, I told you, Mike Hill, I promise he'll call you when he gets back into town. Okay. So I waited a few more days, no call from Rick Baker. And so I called one more time. And as soon as the guy answered, I was like, hi, can I speak? He goes, is this Mike? Yeah. He goes, Mike, I told you, Rick will call you when he gets back into town. And I was like, all right. So I figured that was it. I was never going to connect, A few days later, my phone rings and I'm like, who the hell is calling me? Nobody knows my number. Wait, Rick Baker. I was like, hello? And he goes, is this Mike? And I was like, yeah. He goes, hey, Mike, it's Rick Baker. And I did one of these. Hi, Rick. He goes, hey, what are you doing? I was like, I was been trying to reach you. He goes, yeah, no. I was told I was out of town. I was like, I guess he was out of town.
It really was.
And he invited me into the shop, and he was really wonderful, and he gave me a lot of advice. And I told him that I was going to go to Joe Blasco's, and he goes, get your deposit back. You could teach there. I was like, that's what I said. So I got my deposit back. And then, of course, I asked him for a job after all the time he gave me. And he said, you know what, Mike? The guy that takes out my trash has more practical experience than you. And I was like, oh. Now, he wasn't being mean. He was being absolutely honest. The guy that takes out his trash was an extra pair of hands around the shop. He helped everybody. He was learning. And Rick was like, I just don't have the time to teach anyone new. So I was like, well, can you give me some advice? And he goes to his Rolodex and he's like searching through the Rolodex and he pulls out a business card and he hands it to me. He goes, call them, tell them I told you to call. And it was Makeup Effects Lab. And I literally walked out of Rick's shop. There was a payphone on the wall out on the outside of the building. Picked it up. I called and I was like, hi, my name is Mike. Rick Baker told me to call. And they're like, Rick told you to call? I was like, yeah. Hey, are you in the neighborhood? I was like, well, I don't know. I don't know where you're at, but I just left Rick's shop. He goes, you're 2 blocks away. Come on over. And they gave me a tour. And that was my friend Alan Apone, who owned the shop, who gave me the tour. And he hired me that day. I started working.
Oh my gosh.
And literally everyone I met in like the first couple weeks at MEL, Howard Berger, good longtime friend, he's been on your show, I think.
Yeah.
And a bunch of others, Kenny Myers, who I worked with on Return of the Living Dead and Return of the Living Dead 2. Like literally everybody I met at Makeup Effects Lab became sort of my network. And frankly, they're still my network today. I could pick up the phone anytime and call these people and go, hey, what are you doing? Let's go grab a beer or let's go to a movie.
Yeah.
And when you have a network like that, you'd never really look for work. We just talk to each other and it's like, hey, what are you doing? I don't know. I'm between jobs. Hey, come and work with us. And that's how it was for me.
Yeah. Do you remember the first project you worked on, like credit wise? I think it is Return of the Living Dead is the first one in 85.
Well, that's
House.
The first. Return of the Living Dead was my first on-set experience.
Okay.
Which I got stories about that, but
which is wild. Today's the day from the beginning of the movie. July
Yes,
3rd
I
was
know.
that, which is pretty funny.
Yeah. Um, so, yeah, that was my first on-set experience. But in working in the creature shop, um, I did a bunch of like little tiny. They always had a bunch of different small projects going on at once. We did like a TV movie with Brooke Shields where I had to make some underwater corpses, and we did masks for music videos, and we did a gorilla suit for another TV movie. And it was just like one small project after the next. And then we started on a film called Neon Maniacs, which uh, probably one of the worst movies ever made. Um, and it lost funding twice while we were working on it, so we had to stop working on it for a while. So we started working on that, and then we lost funding, and I went and worked on Return of the Living Dead. And when I came back from that, we continued on Neon Maniacs. So, uh, Return of the Living Dead was because I had met Kenny Myers at Makeup Effects Lab, and he called me up. He goes, "Hey, you working on anything?" I'm like, "No, we're between things right now." And he said, "Come and work on Return of the Living Dead."
That's
So
rad.
I
And what a great movie to
worked on
work
Return
on.
of the Living Dead. But
What kind of things do you remember working on in that movie? Was it a lot of the skeleton, like pretty much everything you had your hand on?
Well,
Or
my first night was applying prosthetics, which I didn't tell Kenny at the time when he hired me that I had never applied a foam latex piece in my life. I kept that a secret. I had applied like little slip latex prosthetics, but I figured, hey, if I can blend those off, I can definitely blend off a foam latex piece.
yeah.
So, he sat me down. He's like, here's your prosthetic. Here's your actor. Have at it. And because I was still on like haunted house speed, I cranked that makeup out. And he came back and saw what I had done. Like I had guys on each side of me with more experience than me applying prosthetics, but I was done in an hour, and we had at least 2 to do the makeups. And he comes over and he goes, "Holy shit." And I'm like, "What?" He goes, "You're done." I'm like, "Yeah." He goes, "Hey, it looks great. Have another." And he brought another actor over and gave me another process, and I did it. So I finished 2 makeups before the guys on each side of me did 1.
Wow.
After that, he asked me to stay. I was only supposed to work one night. He asked me to stay on the rest of the show, which was, for me, that was like, wow, this is an honor. This is so cool. And on my second day, I was airbrushing the Tarman mask. And and then I had a crazy all-night session where I had worked all day, and then towards the end of the day, they said, "Oh, the suicide bite head works tomorrow." And it's like, but that was scheduled for a week from now. The head is just a gelatin head. It's unpainted, no hair, no eyebrows. It's not ready. And so I stayed all night. I painted the head, hand laid a crew cut with this X in it because suicide had that blonde X.
Yeah.
With that. And, did the whole plug where the Tarman bites the plug out of his head. And then I worked the entire next day. So my day was like a 40-hour work day instead of a 40-hour work week. But yeah, I learned a ton on that. I learned, how to act on set, and I learned a lot about, different crazy effects, like when we melted the Tarman in the barrel.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was a fantastic experience for me.
Yeah, and it's just one of those movies that people go back like on like horror Twitter or social media or whatever. Like today, you'll see a ton of people tag it and watch it, and it's always good to watch trash. Man, Linnea Quigley she is just amazing, and she's still like, it's so cool when you see these, especially Rhonda Shear's like bringing back Up All Night, and now she has like a Scream Queens thing, and she has like all them together again. It's pretty neat to celebrate those flicks, and Rhonda is just the best. I was lucky enough to chat with her. Talk about her and Joe Bob what they did for generations of movie lovers, giving us
Mhm.
that opportunity, like, oh, what movie is going to be curated for us? And then you
Mhm.
have all the commentary on it. But yeah, that's such a cool movie. So that's a good way to get it, your feet running, working on a film
Yeah.
like that. And then you're busy for, you know, every year you're working in the 80s and the 90s.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure other people have told you the same thing. The '80s was just such a fantastic time to be an effects artist because we just never stopped working. There was back then there was more demand than artists, and now it's kind of the opposite.
Yeah, and practical people were trying to like top another person. So you had like some sick effect in some movie, and it's like, hey, maybe this isn't going to be the best horror movie with the best script, but we're going to try something really crazy that you're never going to see again. In so many different of the movies, you're like watching these movies that aren't that good, and you're like, oh my god, they did that! Like that looks so cool.
Yeah, yeah. Today they
Now, do you
wouldn't do
have?
like the wax heads that
Oh
we
yeah,
used,
yeah, just the money
for
of it,
melting
right?
the
That's
Starman.
kind of what it is, right? Like the cost of doing practical effects just became too much for some studios to shell out, right?
I think that's the thought is that it got too expensive, but digital is infinitely more expensive and time
Yeah.
consuming than the practical. Um, I remember reading, I think it was Hollywood Reporter or something like that, when they were making Green Lantern. And they were talking
Oh,
about how they were going to invest another $9 million into his digital suit because it wasn't working.
it's
And it's like,
insane.
man, give me $1 million. I'll do a suit that will make you coffee in the morning. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, that is true. Yeah,
so
I wonder what it
yeah,
is then. Then why don't they want to do it anymore? Do they think that look because it looks so clean and crisp? Is that what they want the viewer to see? Not because I love when it's real. When you watch a movie and you see like even now you're like, holy shit, that was legit. Like what just happened was legit.
mhm. Well, I tell people all the time, it's like there's the Lord of the Rings movies and the Hobbit movies. In the Lord of the Rings movies, they had real orcs, people in makeup that they're scary, and you see swords connecting, and they're fighting like living beings. And then you watch the Hobbit, and it's all digital, and it looks like a
Yeah,
freaking video game, and I can't
yeah.
watch them. It's like watching a video game, and I just can't do it. So
Yeah,
yeah, I haven't
those
gotten more
movies are
than
wild when
15
you
minutes.
think about the makeup effects on the Lord of the Rings movies. Like you just said, all of the people. Like I don't know if you crossed paths with Bill Hunt when you were over at KMB at all, but he was
Mm-hmm.
there like in the mid '90s for a little bit. But then he loved the Lord of the Rings like as a kid, reading it and the animated movie. So he like went
Mm-hmm.
over there just to, like visit the set, and he got a gig there, and he still lives there now. Like
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, those movies, yeah, you're right. They take it so much, especially if you are used to a certain thing within a certain story. It's almost like Puppet Master. Have you seen any of the Puppet Masters in the last 20 years that they make? They're all like
Mm-hmm.
CGI and they look like bad. Like some of them look really bad, or they do practical and it's not stop motion practical. It's really just
Mm-hmm.
their heads are moving on robotics. So it's not good at all. But
Yeah.
no, that's an interesting perspective on that. So
Yeah.
now obviously we're not going to go through all your credits, but do you have one like early on? Obviously, your first time as set is so memorable. Do you have any
Yeah.
other effects maybe that you worked on, and the first one you saw on screen, you're like, oh my god, I did that. Like seeing Return of the Living Dead, I'm sure was cool. Seeing it on the big screen of something you worked,
Yeah. That was super cool. I was 22 when I
which
started
is
working
wild
on
how
that
quick that
movie.
happened.
Yeah. And when by the time it came out, I was 23. So, I was still like a big geek, It's like, I get to see a movie I worked on, you know. Yeah, I mean, after like many years of like low budget horror films, I got to work at Stan Winston's on several projects,
Oh,
um,
that's cool.
and so Alien Nation, Leviathan, Predator 2, Edward
Yeah,
Scissorhands, and Terminator 2.
yeah.
And one of the highlights I still tell everyone, one of the highlights of my career was getting to paint all the Predators in Predator 2. Um, that was a big thing for me, because when I saw the first Predator movie, I left the theater going, why don't I ever get to work on cool monsters like that? And then I worked on Predator 2, and it my prophecy was fulfilled, I guess. Um, but I feel like a pinnacle for me was Tales from the Crypt, because
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I saw the original Tales from the Crypt movie with Joan Collins and Ralph Richardson, and it was the English-made Tales from the Crypt movie, and it was the only horror film that ever gave me a nightmare as a kid. I would dream Santa Claus was coming to kill me, and it's true. It was like a recurring nightmare. And so when they did the TV series, I was like, oh, I have to work on this. It was the only thing that ever gave me a nightmare. And I didn't work on it right away, but at the end of the second season, Kevin Yeager, who does the Crypt Keeper and did a
Yeah.
lot of the effects for the episodes, called me and said, hey, you want to come and do some makeup with me one night? And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And after we did that episode, that was called The Thing from the Grave. And it was the one with Terry Hatcher, and the zombie comes back to protect her. And after we did that episode, Kevin said, hey, we're going to start up the third season. Do you want to run the set for me? And I was like, hell yes. And so I did all of the season 3 and all of season 4. And every week was a new, creature of the week, zombie of the week, murderer of the week, whatever it was. And it was great fun. I love doing that show.
They had some great guest stars too. That's what I think nowadays, because there's so many channels and there's so many different options. Like back then, like when I go to interview actors and they were on like a Tales from the Crypt, or if they were on like a 21 Jump Street from the 80s, you're
Yeah.
like watching episodes, you're like, oh my God, there's like 3 other people in this that became something afterwards, not
Yeah.
just like a background person. Were there any cool people in this? Obviously, Terry Hatcher on that first experience you had. Was there any actors that popped afterwards or big at the time that were on there that in the seasons that you worked on?
I mean, we had so many, because we had like the biggest executive producers in the industry doing that show, Bob Zemeckis and,
Yeah.
Walter Hill and Joel Silver and, Richard Donner. They were our executive producers. So they had all the power in the world to bring actors. Like if an actor's working on one of their movies, they bring that actor to do a Tales from the Crypt. So we had like Schwarzenegger directed an episode, Michael J. Fox directed an episode, Tom Hanks directed an episode. So a lot of actors who weren't normally directors got to direct an episode, but also act in them. The episode that Tom Hanks directed, he also had a bit part in the episode.
That's right. I just randomly clicked on one, The Reluctant Vampire. Even that one, Malcolm McDowell, Sandra Dickinson, George Wendt, Michael Berryman, and Paul Gleason.
Yep.
Those are all just like Murderer's Row of people you know.
It's true. Yeah. And George, I had worked with on House years before that.
Oh, yeah.
That was, 1985 or 86 that I did House. George was in that. I mean, it's kind of sad today, looking back and seeing how many of those actors are no longer with us. Because, age, that kind of thing.
Yeah. The one thing you can't beat is age. I know.
Yeah. But, so Tales from the Crypt was a great experience for me. And I ended up getting some Emmy nominations for it. So that was cool.
That's special, man. You mentioned before, especially with this heat, it's very fitting. Predator 2 is how hot it is in New Jersey right now. That movie is, we've done this podcast for like 7.5 years. And I always wanted to start it with like some caveat of like, there's so many movie review podcasts and interview, but there's not 2 that are like sort of married. So I always like to talk with someone prior to like covering it and doing research on a film. And that was sometimes we break the rules and be like, man, we really want to do this movie because of blank, and we'll put one out. But like Predator 2,
Mhm.
I've always like dug my feet in the ground. I've always like wanted to talk to somebody because I think it is such a wild just jump from a first one to a second one
Mhm.
in like movie history. It's so different. You have only one thing from the first movie, the Predator, which it's not.
Right.
It's a different one, and just the futuristic setting. The cast is wild. Like
Mhm.
everybody in that movie is like absolutely sick. So that's pretty cool. You mentioned like the cool thing you had an opportunity to work on was like all the Predators. But how about like the alien? Did you work on the alien that's like in the background? That Easter egg that
No,
was put in there?
the one that's in the background was, sculpted by, Bruce Spalding Fuller. Yeah,
Okay.
he
But
did,
that was a neat thing to see, like, is that something that was in the lore then? Like, or did somebody just say, "Hey, man, one time we're gonna put these guys together in
I
15
think they
years?"
already had the comic books then,
Oh, okay.
but there was no, that was it. That was the only thing that ever, like, brought the 2 together at that.
Yeah. And just Danny Glover, you know him as, like, from Lethal Weapon as, like, this disgruntled, wanna retire cop, and it's
Mhm.
just such a cool movie, man. Must've been so much fun to work on. And then around that same time is Bride of Reanimator, which I
Yep.
know from talking to, Brian Usna and talking with
Mhm.
Kathleen and talking with, Howard,
Howard, yeah.
and now another person involved in it, like,
Yeah.
what she went through in that
Oh,
role of
god.
doing the makeup.
She's a trooper. Oh,
Yeah.
I would have cried like a baby in that thing, but she was great. Um, I couldn't say enough nice things about her. And, just I always love working with Howard and Bob. Greg wasn't really on that project. It was more like Howard and Bob Kurtzman that were doing that film, and I was uh, like the on-set person for that film. So they would come sometimes and do makeup with us, but especially the Bride days. But like when we had the other zombies and other effects, it was me and a few other people that were doing that, and then Howard and Bob would come. Definitely the Bride days.
Yeah, those movies they're so crazy. Just some of the special a lot of those Brian Usna movies, there's just, like, some wild stuff. Like, at a drive-in out in Lehighton, PA, it's about, like, an hour and a half from me. I'm in Hunterdon
Mhm.
County, and they're showing in, like, 2 weeks on a Friday, and Rhonda Shear's gonna be there. They're doing Society
Oh yeah.
on projector, and I never saw
Uh-huh.
that movie until I chatted with him like 6 years ago. I'm like, "This is like the coolest movie." It's like such a weird storyline of like how the rich get richer but and live longer because they're eating the poor people, and just the effects in it are just going for it, and you see that in even just Bride of Reanimator has like just how wild some of the stuff out of nowhere is. No explanation needed.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the especially the weirdest effects, was the screaming Mad George stuff,
Yes. Yeah.
because
Oh,
he
yeah.
did Society, but he also did, like, all the conglomerate bodies and all the weird stuff behind the wall.
Yep. The butt man, butt face man,
Yeah.
that guy. Oh my god. So amazing. Now while you're doing all this, you're working on all these films, did you ever keep any mementos along the way thinking about like, "Oh, man, this would be cool to have, like, even, like, a script or something from the film?"
I had all the tales from the Crypt scripts, and I kept all the scripts for a period of time, but my short-sightedness, I actually got rid of all of them. The only script I have left is Stargate. That's the only one
Okay.
I have left. But I had all the scripts with all my production notes in there and things like that, and yeah, don't have them anymore. Threw them out. And just, man, somebody would want those today.
Oh my god, yes. Especially, like,
Yeah.
nobody thought back then, like, it's gonna be one time there's gonna be an opportunity to have this, like, eBay kind of thing, because as
Yeah.
a kid, like, that's why, like, baseball cards used to be worth so much, because you
Mhm.
went to a card show in somewhere in Jersey at, like, some mall, and
Mhm.
there would be like, "Oh my god, this guy has a Barry Bonds," and in your mind, like, this is the only one, because how else
Mhm.
can I find it? There's no, like,
Yeah.
Google search engine or anything. Because now, like, even that is like huge now, like baseball card trading. It's to me insane. And just like the value of these things, you're like, but for your scripts, like you're saying, they would probably go in like auctions or something for ridiculous amounts of money.
I know. Yeah, that could have been my retirement right there, I
Yeah,
guess.
right.
Um, Short
The
sighted.
waiter brings the check. You're like, season 3, episode 2, sir.
Yeah. And in my storage unit that's still in LA, I have some boxes of old stuff from some projects I worked on. I know I have like a corpse puppet that I made for uh, the None But the Lonely Heart episode of Tales from the Crypt. There's a puppet zombie that crawled along the ground that I made, and it was foam latex, so it's all disintegrated now. But so I have some stuff like that. Nobody's going to want that. Um, but yeah, you see the house behind me. It's very boring. There's no monster. There's nothing there. Um, People always thought was like, you sure you work in the industry? You have nothing to show for it. I'm like,
You leave it at work.
work is at work and home is home, and home
Yeah.
is my sanctuary, and they don't meet.
I interviewed this guy, Stephen Post. He was like an art director, production designer on a bunch of flicks.
Mhm.
Oh no, cinematographer maybe. But he did like wore a bunch of hats. But he worked on Blade Runner in the art
Uh-huh.
department for a little bit. And his thing that he kept was in one of the office scenes. There's like these random things that sit on the wall behind. He took it
Uh-huh.
and he was like a lot. So he's like, "Yo, you want to see something cool?" And he starts laughing and he picks it up on the ground. He goes, "I use it as a doorstop." It's like, all right, you do what you do. And he lived in the house that John Carpenter used to own, and they filmed that scene in the hot tub from The Fog in the in the house, which was
Mhm.
very random, very yeah. But
No,
no, I think it's always it depends on if you're a keeper or like I moved across country multiple times, and we just used our Honda Civic and fit what we could, and like whatever couldn't fit, it was whatever. But yeah, like Stuart Penkin, he had like a whole closet of scripts, but he's like, I don't know what to do with me. He was like, I just leave them there. Like I don't know what to do with them. So it's always interesting to see what people think about. But so back to like your work. So Stan Winston, like you said, that was such a big thing because you had that book when you were, growing up, and you were able to look at that like while you were going through everything. So working for him obviously must have been huge, especially on a movie that was one of the biggest flicks in Terminator 2. What were
it
some of
was.
the things that you did working on that?
Well, while I was at Stan's, I was pretty much the head painter. I painted everything for Stan. I just that's all I did was paint, paint, paint. I was the paint department. Um, and at the time, Terminator 2 was the most expensive movie ever made. In fact, I think James Cameron has a record of the most expensive movies ever made.
He
Every
spends a
movie he
lot of
made
money.
was the most expensive movie ever made at the time, and that was Terminator 2. Of course, Titanic blew that out of the water, and Avatar. Every movie he makes is the most expensive movie ever made, but they make their money back, so nobody complains. Um, but yeah, so I did a couple of effects, but mostly I was painting. So I was in charge of everything. Well, anytime you see a Terminator on the screen, I probably painted it. Whether it
Yeah.
was like when John Connor's foster mother stabs her husband through the with the milk carton through
Yeah.
that arm was dipped in chrome. It was a solid piece dipped in chrome, but it had to start fading into Jeanette Goldstein's skin, and she's
Yeah.
like super freckled. So the day I was painting that, Dick Smith walks into the shop. Well, we all regard him as the godfather of makeup, the greatest ever, ever. And Dick sees me painting, and he comes and he sits down next to me. And I'm like, So not that he's not nice. I mean, I was able to say, hello, how you doing? But he sits down next to me and he's watching me paint. And, it's like the person you look up to most in the world and you seek their approval is watching you paint. And you're like, and he's not saying anything. He's just watching. And he's like, mm, but no actual words. And after about 10 minutes, I turned to him, I'm like, what, Dick? And he goes, Jesus, Mike, that was the best fucking freckle job I've ever seen in my life. I was like, oh God, I can die now. Because the guy I respect the most just complimented me. So that will stay with me till the day I die.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. But all my years at Stan's were great. Tales from the Crypt was great. And then after Terminator 2, I kind of made a conscious decision to stop taking projects. I became a photographer. I was always a photographer, but I opened up a photo studio, and I still did some projects. I mean, I did Stargate while I had my photo business. I did Gettysburg while I still had my photo business. I did a bunch of projects, but I wanted to scale back. And so my conscious decision was to leave the film industry eventually and just do photography for the rest of my life.
Sweet.
But, obviously my friends were all still in the business, and I always wanted to honor Dick Smith by writing a book like his for newcomers to the industry who wanted to learn how to do effects makeup. So I wrote a book called The Monstrous Makeup Manual. And I did that while I had my photo.
Episode notes. That's cool.
What's that? I'm sorry.
No, I said I'll put that in the episode notes. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
No, the book. I'm saying the book. You could buy it online still? It's still out there?
Yeah. Yeah. And now there's 3 of them.
I'll find the link and I'll post it.
Okay. So the first book, The Monstrous Makeup Manual, book 1, I had the foresight of thinking I'm going to make it a trilogy. So I called it book 1. And it became very popular. And when it became popular, people started reaching out to me and saying, hey, are you still doing makeup? I thought you were a photographer. And I was like, yeah, I'm a photographer, but what do you got? And people started offering me jobs again. So, when the money is good, you say yes once in a while. And so it got me back in the industry. And again, I was more selective with the projects I was doing. I wasn't just working all the time. I still liked my photo business. But then I got a call from my friend Bruce, who I mentioned earlier, who sculpted the alien skull, Bruce Fuller. He was teaching at Cinema Makeup School in Hollywood. And he said, hey, you should really teach here. I was like, what's going on? He goes, well, I teach here and we're using your book as a textbook. And I'm like, well, yeah, it just makes sense that I would teach there. So I interviewed, they hired me on the spot. I was teaching every so often, and then they offered me a position as the chief academic officer. In other words, I'd be in charge of the students' entire education there. Wow. So I would be writing classes and augmenting classes and things like that. And I was the chief academic officer there for many, many years. And while I was there, like 2 years into it, I wrote my second Monstrous Makeup Manual. Then I wrote the textbooks for the school, 3 different textbooks. And then eventually I wrote my third and final Monstrous Makeup Manual.
Did you name it the final book, or is there?
I wrote.
You did?
I subtitled it The Final Chapter.
That's amazing.
Like Friday the 13th.
That's awesome. And, well, you know how that ends, right? Then you can have a new beginning.
Yeah, the new
That'd be
beginning and then the 10
hilarious.
more movies. Yeah, but I'm not writing any more books. That was enough for me. But and then when I decided 2 years ago that I was going to move to Vegas, I thought that was kind of it. I just have my photo business, quiet life. Like 2 years ago, I had a heart attack and I decided to
Oh,
really, you know, start taking it easy, not working so much and certainly not stressing myself out. So I thought I'll just move to Vegas and have a quiet life and have my little photo business and start collecting social security and all that stuff. And I got here and after a few months I was like, I'm bored as shit. I didn't have, it's like business was slow because I had moved my business to a new city and nobody knew me yet. So I was like, what am I going to do? And then I saw this ad for L Makeup Institute here in Vegas. And I was like, what the hell? I looked at their website and it's like, oh, they have a special effects program. I reached out. I was like, hey, my name is Mike Spatola. Oh, we know who you are. I'm like, what? We know who you are, Mike. We use your book as a textbook. I was like,
Ah.
and so they said, you know what? We're going to call you back on Monday with an offer. And they called me back on Monday with an offer, just like they said they would. And now I'm the director of special effects at L Makeup Institute as
Go,
well.
Mike.
Yeah,
That's
so
cool.
I'm
You should just
there
put that
4 days
into the
a
book.
week.
You should have put that in the book. If you teach this book, you have to hire me. It works out. It's part of the scrolls that are out there.
Yeah,
If
it's
you
kind
teach
of
Mike's
funny.
book, he will come.
Yeah, it's funny. Um, so right now that's where I'm still at. I teach there, and I have my little photo business here, Lifestyle Boudoir. It's called. I do boudoir photography, and yeah, and
Is that what
I'm
you
just
always did? Like when you after T2 when you were going into photography, is that what was the avenue you were looking at then?
So, but I had a sort of a general purpose photography business. I did weddings, portraits, actor headshots, model portfolios. I kind of did it all, but over time you learn what pays the best, what you
Mhm.
can market the best, and what provides you with the most sort of creative gratification. Um, and frankly, the boudoir business it's something people can't really do for themselves because they can't look through the camera and pose at the same time and
Mhm.
take good photos. And there's just so much more to it than that. It's not just the posing, but great lighting, good sets, great rapport with your clients, making them relax in front of the camera when they're wearing underwear in front of a strange dude.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you know, so uh, I've carved out quite a nice little niche in that area, and I've been doing nothing but boudoir for at least 10 years now.
Wow. And Vegas must be good because you get people that are out there, even maybe like a bachelorette thing or something.
I've had people coming into town for like birthdays and things like that, and book me for a shoot. Um, and there's a never-ending supply of dancers here that are
Yeah.
just fantastic to shoot. They know their bodies, they know their angles, they have stage presence, so photographing them is just a breeze and a pleasure.
When was the last time somebody like tried to reach out to you to work on a project? I'm sure you get emails that are from people you probably don't know, but
Um, it's been a little while. I mean, now it's established that I live in Vegas. I've lived
yeah, that's
here
true.
a, a little less than 2 years, so yeah, nobody's asking me to work on movies. But again, I still have my friends, my contacts. I have an ex who produces a lot of shorts,
Oh,
and
cool.
um, she she was great. She produced Harbinger Down, which was, I don't know if you know that project, that
I've
film.
heard of it.
It was directed by Alec Gillis, who owned who was the owner of ADI, Amalgamated
Okay.
Dynamic Incorporated. Um, he directed it. It was a Kickstarter film, and it was like The Thing on a boat. And Lance
The thing
Henriksen
on a boat.
was the star, and Lance
Oh,
is
cool. I
great.
see it now. I'm looking. Oh,
Yeah.
sweet. Yeah,
Yeah,
Lance is
Lance
awesome.
is fantastic, and it was a fun project to work on, and I ended up meeting somebody that I ended up in a relationship with for a while, and I ended up working on a lot of projects with her, um, and I still talk to her from time to time, but I really can't go work on any of her projects. I'm not going
Yeah.
to drive to LA to work on a short,
No,
so.
especially you're working on stuff all the time. Like when you're teaching, how does it go class wise? Obviously, there's like the generic. Are you trying to imitate something from a specific film? Is that part of like a student's project or try to
No,
recreate
not
something?
really. So um, I am at this school. I'm not the I'm not overseeing all the classes. I'm only
Yeah.
seeing overseeing the special effects classes. So that's special effects and advanced prosthetics are my two classes. And I've completely rewritten those classes so they're more up to date now. And um, in the special effects class, we start off with like character makeup out of the kit stuff, like old age, facial hair, bald caps, injury simulation stuff. And then we go into life casting, sculpting, mold making. And then they do a final project where they sculpt and make the prosthetics and the dentures. Um, and it's up to them to choose a, a character or a creature that they want to make. And I just explained to them, look, it's got to be something you fall in love with, because if you don't, the next 4 weeks is going to suck, because
Yeah, that's
you're
true.
going to come in going, I don't want to sculpt this. I don't want to do this. So I'm like, look, figure out what you love. Like I got a girl in my current class who loves drag queen makeup. So she's doing an over the top drag queen with prosthetics where the cheekbones are really big, and
Yeah.
it's just an exaggerated drag queen. Um, and I have like somebody doing sort of like a Coraline makeup with the button eyes, and a clicker makeup with the mushrooms growing out of their face, and so it's whatever they love, and I just kind of help them to realize it, but I also tell them, don't copy something that's been done before. Not exactly, because I'll be comparing it to the original. And certainly don't do something that I did before, because
Yeah,
then I'm
right.
really going to be comparing it to the original. Um,
Yeah.
so I say, if you want to do a Frankenstein, don't do the Boris Karloff Frankenstein. Come up with your own original design.
Yeah. How is the film community there in Vegas? Is there like a film program at like UNLV? Is there a lot of shorts being shot for these kids to be able to go out and like practice outside of school on?
Yeah, there's some, like, there's definitely the film school stuff, and there's the homegrown projects, uh, passion projects, stuff like that. But there's no big movies going on here
Yeah.
at the time anyway. But there's a lot of people from the industry who have moved here. Like Mark Wahlberg lives here, you know, uh, and his makeup artist Alan Apone lives here. um, and I know Michael Westmore moved out here, and some retired people. But what we have here is we have some big haunted house projects. We have the Universal Horror Unleashed, which is a year-round Halloween Horror Nights uh,
Cool.
here. Um, we do have, like, again, the student films and the independent projects that are passion projects, where obviously they don't pay much, if at all. Um,
Yeah.
but they get their feet wet on that stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
And
I
it's
heard
growing,
that,
right? Has it grown a ton since you've been there in Vegas, like in the 2 years? Like
uh,
population wise, I feel like it's because now they're talking about a baseball team, basketball
yeah,
team. Usually you need enough population to cover that.
yeah. Well, we got the Raiders here now.
And
They
that's
moved
huge.
out of
That's what I mean.
California.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everybody's moving out of California. Not that we
Yeah.
need to get into politics, but
Yeah.
Newsom and Bass. Um, I mean, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to leave. Was I just,
Yeah.
it wasn't the California that I knew and loved, and it was just time to go. And hopefully, my son moves out of there sometime soon too.
Is your son
Um,
in the industry at all?
no, he's not at all in the industry. He never really wanted to do that. In fact, when he was growing up, he knew what I did for a living, but it didn't affect him at all. He wasn't into it. Um, when he was little, I mean, he's almost 30 now, but when he was little, I would do his Halloween makeups and that was kind of it. And one year I glued a beard on him because he wanted to be Jack Sparrow. And that was the last time he let me do makeup on him. He hated the glue, the spirit gum. So yeah, after that, he was like, never again. So yeah.
That's cool. The special effect. It'd be like the movie My Blue Heaven, but in Vegas with like special effects guys making everybody up. But and it's been so much fun, Mike. One question I always love to ask people, especially since you kind of were doing this for so long, was there ever, like from a young age, did you ever have any other career paths that you were thinking? Obviously, photography was one that you went into while still doing this. But was there any like 9-to-5 type jobs or careers that you were like thinking about or had on the back burner at all?
No, the only other thing I really wanted to do with my life was be a professional magician. And I did do that.
Do you still do it?
No. I mean, every once in a while I'll pick up a coin or some cards and do some flourishes and things like that. But no, I haven't performed in forever. But when I was young and living in New Jersey, I performed at the Playboy Casino when there was a Playboy Casino.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh my God.
At Resorts International, and once at Caesars. So I had performed in, but I also did like birthday parties and special events shows, like the Boy Scouts or whatever it was, like banquets or things. I would do these shows, and so I did that for many years. And when I decided to move to LA, I just got rid of almost all of my equipment. I just kept a few like sentimental pieces and that's it.
Yeah. It's crazy like that you were into magic and that's kind of what special effects is, right? You're trying to trick the audience thinking like, this is real. This is a real skeleton that's walking. And it's pretty fascinating that they kind of marry each other, the two.
It's just a different kind of magic. Yeah. There's quite a few special effects artists that were magicians too.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Do you know Spectral Motion? Do you know that?
No. Spectral Motion?
Spectral Motion is a creature shop. They did the Lost in Space robot for the recent Lost in Space series on Netflix. Mike Elizalde, who owns that shop, is a professional magician as well and is big at the Magic Castle. And another guy I used to work with, Craig Caton, he was a magician too. And so just so many people who are into special effects were also into magic.
And you're in the like magician capital, right? There's got to be a ton of magicians that are performing at every casino one night a week, right? So maybe you dust that cap off and
that's okay. I've done my duty.
Yeah. Oh man. Oh well, Mike, this has been awesome. So great to connect with you, and especially a Jersey guy. And I'll let you know when this comes out. But really cool picking your brain, man.
Great. I had fun. I love doing these, and sort of reminiscing and looking back.
I think honestly, it's so funny. Nobody like I helped. Larry Hankin, who's like a big time character actor. I helped him put together his memoirs. I did one of these interviews on like a Saturday with him and I was asking him questions and he's like, I don't want to give you all my stories. I'm like, okay. He's like, I want to write a book one day. So I helped him during COVID. We connected just before. Then every Saturday we meet for like 3 hours and go over pretty much his life. I was going on his IMDb. He had a bad memory. And I would just be like, oh, let's talk about this. And he'd like have all these stories for it. But it is, it's just, I don't even know where I was going with that in the beginning, but it's so fascinating how he didn't remember a lot until he almost, when I was on Laverne and Shirley, here's a story with that. Oh yeah, and then I remember I was in San Francisco at that time, and he would just kind of like put these things together because it's not like you're talking shop, maybe with another special effects guy, but even that, I don't know. Like even Larry, he talked about, one of the movies he was on the longest was She's Having a Baby. Do you remember that movie, that John Hughes movie? So him and John Ashton were two of the neighbors in the neighborhood. And there was a lot of scenes they were sitting in lawn chairs drinking beer and they were just like shooting the shit. And he was like, it was such a weird thing because you're like at this summer camp, which I'm sure you experienced on movies or working with crews. And it's like, you're like best friends and family for like 2 months. And then it's like, you don't see them again. Or you run
I
into them
say that
7
all the
years later and
time.
it's like, oh shit, remember that? Oh, let's reminisce. It's like seeing old friends.
Yeah, for sure. Um, what I tell my students these stories, but they can't really relate. First of all, I'm from a completely different generation than them. I say, "Hey, do you guys know who Rick Baker is?" And they're like, "Huh?" I'm like, "Rick Baker, 7 Oscars for best
That's
makeup."
crazy that people going into a school for this
Thank
don't
you.
know
Yes.
those people, right?
Yeah. So, when I'm telling these stories, they sometimes just roll their eyes at me, and I'm like, "You guys don't know, man, what I've been through, in a great way." I'm not saying what
Yeah.
I've been through in a bad way, although there's been those stories too. Um, you know, I could pick a project. I could tell you stories. The what you just said a little bit ago about being friends with someone for the run of the film, and then you never see
Yeah.
them again. That happens so many times. And I remember doing Return to Horror High, which was,
Clooney, right? That's Clooney, Lisa Wilcox, maybe? In that one or no?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That was like George Clooney's first time. He was in a TV show, but I think that was his first movie. And he was on the
Yep.
film for one day, you know. But um, Maureen McCormick from the Brady Bunch played a female cop in
Oh,
that.
that must have been really
And
cool.
we got close on that project. We would laugh and joke. And there was this, scene where she is covered in blood and she's like kind of rubbing herself. And after the film, she runs into the makeup room, leaps over the couch, lays into this position and goes, "Bye bye, Marcia." And I just busted up. And we just got along so well that like after the movie, she was like, "Hey, can you do my makeup for this?" And I thought, "Hey, we're going to be friends." And then after I did her makeup for that next thing, I never heard from her again. So
I think
bye
it's
bye,
like a
Marcia.
human nature, even when like where you're on you're stuck somewhere with strangers, you become friendly and you open up and it's like, never gonna see you. It's like when you talk to a bartender, it's like this guy,
Hmm.
it's like it's pretty much like therapy. You're like opening
Yeah.
up to these people. But no, Clooney, I talked to a guy that, yeah, I don't know, Steven, I can't think of his last name, but he was the cinematographer on Return of the Killer Tomatoes, which was Clooney, like, and he said, like, man, I know he's gonna be something from this. And it's funny when you go back and watch that movie. I don't know the last time you saw it, it like is really good. Like the breaking the fourth wall so many times, and what's his name was so good in it, the guy that I forgot what other movies he was in. He was like the bad guy in one of the crappy Bond movies with Robert Davi and the iguana, whatever one that is. I can't think of the
Oh,
guy, but he was on Seinfeld. He was the Jimmy on Seinfeld, the guy that spoke in third person all the time. I can't think of his name, but yeah. Anyway, no, I think it's just it's the nature. You're with people, you learn about them, and then you never see each other again. Or if you do, it's like, hey, what's up? Let's pick up like learning about each other than we that we left off. But yeah, Mike, this has been a lot of fun. And oh yeah, one other question because you mentioned about
yeah.
like writing a book.
Hmm.
What was the process like? What did you enjoy? What did you hate? Because you said I would never do that again.
Ah, okay. So the first book I wrote completely on my own. I designed all the makeups. I sculpted all the makeups. I shot every picture. I wrote every word and no one else had anything to do with it except the people that were the models for my makeups.
Mm.
And that was a joy. I wrote the whole book in like 5 months. Um, and I was really pretty pleased with it in the end. When I wrote the second book, I had a lot of people saying, "Hey, I'd like to do a makeup for your book." And
Ah,
um, so I had a lot of great people volunteering to do, like, Aaron Kruger McCash from American Horror Story did a makeup for my book. Joel Harlow did a makeup for my book. Steve Laporte, who's like got a couple of Oscars for best makeup, did a makeup for my book. So a lot of great people. But when you have these great people doing makeups for your book, you make a lot of concessions like, hey, I want to do this, but I'm busy on a project right now. Can we do it next month? Or- and so uh, the first book took me 5 months. The second book took me almost 2 years.
Oh my God.
When I wrote the third book, and I should have never announced the third book that I was going to do it. I should have never announced it because then people are like, when is it coming out? When is it coming out? When is it? It took me 4 years to write that book because, again, I had all these fantastic makeup artists volunteering to do makeups, and I was on their schedules. And after that, I was like, no more. If I ever do this again, which I'm not going to, I will do it completely by myself again.
Yeah.
And so that's, but I loved doing it, planning it. It was a great thing. And I still enjoyed doing the second one. It just took too long. And then the third one was like 4 years of my life, even though it wasn't 4 years of just writing a book. I would do other things, obviously, but it's just like getting into the process, then stopping the process and getting back into the process and stopping the process. It was just no more.
Yeah. You want to make sure especially something that is so time consuming, to make sure it's fun. Because I remember even when Larry was done with his book and he got somebody to publish it, it was just like, he was like, okay, what's next? And he was like, all right, I'm going to write another book about like just some sketch idea he had from the 70s when he was in the committee in San Francisco. So he's like, I'm going to take this character and try to write it. But it is a beautiful process because it helps you remember things. Like when you go back, even when I talk to people, I'll be like going through their IMDb or I'll watch something before I interview them. And I'll say like, do you remember? And all I'm doing is really looking at a list of movies that I know anyway. And they're like, oh my God, I haven't thought about, like Eric Roberts told me a story when he was on Best of the Best 2. He got Wayne Newton the gig as the villain and he gave him a horse and he thought he was messing with him. And sure enough, he sent them home with a horse. And he's like, I don't know where to put a horse. So like just stuff like that. It's so funny. It's like, that's a sick story. Like you're at a dinner party, but I guess when you have 1,000 amazing stories, like you, from all the sets you worked on, I'm sure there's some things out of nowhere. You're like, holy shit, I've totally forgot about that time with this. So, no, it's just fun talking to people. And it's fun just learning about what goes in to make a scene. Like it is wild how many people are involved before that's even shot, the day of it's shot, or even months down the road of it getting put together. So it's a lot of fun. And it's, it's been so much fun picking your brain, Mike. You ever come back to Jersey at all to visit? Do you still have family here?
Yeah. My mom, my brother, my aunts, uncles, cousins, everybody's still there except my dad who moved to Florida.
Most people do that. Yeah. They go to Florida.
So I'm planning a trip back sometime soon. I haven't been back in several years, and it's time.
Yeah. You miss anything about New Jersey? Do you miss snow? Do you miss
Philly cheesesteaks, the pizza?
Yeah.
The food, man. The seafood, the Blue Point crabs. I miss the food, and of course my family, but. Living in Brigantine for a while, I don't miss the greenhead flies. And two of those could pick you up and carry you away. They bite like crazy. No thanks. But
no, the food's good, man. It's in the water. People that open up restaurants like in Myrtle Beach that live in Jersey ship down the water. It's like that's so big for the bagels. That's why everywhere else bagels are like rolls with a hole in it. It's just not the same. But all right, Mike, enjoy the rest of your day, man. I really appreciate it. When this comes out, I'll shoot you an email.
Great. Thanks so much, Doug. This was fun.
Mike was great. It was cool talking with him because I talked to Sadler, who was on the first Tales from the Crypt episode, which was like so huge for him and for the show. But it was really cool because I used to love watching that show. It had such great guest stars. Like in the interview, like I just popped up a random episode, 5-6 names, like Paul Gleason, like, oh, I know those people. He has a story about working on Terry Hatcher's episode. Just so many people that were in other things big were like, hey, want to be here? Like you said, we had some of the biggest people behind it. So they were able to pull in those people to be on the episodes. But Tales from the Crypt was so cool. Mike was awesome. So be sure, if you're into special effects or just want to look at a cool book, Monstrous Makeup Manual Books 1, 2, and 3. Or if you're in Vegas, check out his photography. His what he does is pretty awesome. I have the link in the episode notes so you can check it out. If you're ever in Vegas, look it up. He does like this very bourgeois, terrible at French, even though I took it in high school, photography that he does. But yeah, Mike's a great guy. So yeah, your homework, Predator 2, you can find it anywhere for like $4 to rent. It's worth it. The cast is amazing. You have Bill Paxton, you have Gary Busey, Danny Glover, Maria Conchita Alonso, just some real heavy hitters. And yeah, so don't forget to review, rate, share our podcast. Follow us on all social media at Sequels Only. And don't forget to check out our website, sequelsonly.com. Good
night.
Good night, guys. Good night, guys.